You didn't buy a symbol of eternal love. You bought a 1,000% markup on a rock that isn't even rare. This is the greatest brainwashing campaign in human history. Every year, millions of people completely bankrupt their savings accounts, max out their credit cards, and endure sleepless nights of financial anxiety, all for a tiny piece of compressed carbon. We have been taught to believe that the size of this rock directly measures the depth of our commitment. But how did a single cartel convince the entire planet that a common mineral equals a lifetime promise? It wasn't luck, and it certainly wasn't romance. It was a calculated psychological weapon. Today, we are going to peel back the layers of this corporate illusion and dissect exactly why our brains are so easily manipulated by it. We will journey through the 3 hidden psychological triggers that De Beers used to manufacture desire out of thin air, moving from the superficial pressures of society down to the darkest, most vulnerable corners of human insecurity. If you stay with me until the very end, I will show you how this exact same psychological blueprint is being used to drain your wallet right now in your everyday life. And more importantly, I will share the one shift in perspective that will instantly break the spell and protect your hard-earned freedom. To understand how we fell into this trap, we have to start with the most obvious surface-level reason. This is the first layer of the funnel, what psychologists call social proof. Now, immediately after hearing that term, you might think of it as just online reviews or trendy social media stars. But in behavioral psychology, social proof is a primal survival mechanism. It is the hardwired tendency to copy the behavior of others, because our brains assumes that if everyone else is doing it, it must be the correct, safe, and acceptable path. Thousands of years ago, if you saw your entire tribe running away from a dark cave, you didn't stop to analyze the data. You ran with them or you died. De Beers took this ancient survival instinct and weaponized it against the American consumer. In the late 1930s, they realized that nobody actually needed diamonds. The market was flooded and prices were about to collapse. So instead of shouting into the wind and telling people to buy their product, they did something far more sinister. They changed the definition of a normal life. They secretly funded Hollywood movies, slipped massive diamond rings onto the fingers of elite actresses, and paid newspapers to write detailed gossip columns about how high society men were proposing. They created an artificial reality where a proposal without a diamond was practically illegal. Imagine walking into a modern coffee shop today and suddenly noticing that every single person inside is wearing a specific brand of bright neon shoes. Nobody told you to buy them, but within 10 minutes, your brain begins to scream that you are the outsider, that you are flawed, that you are missing the unspoken rule of the room. That is exactly what happened to the American public. The diamond became the ultimate signifier of social belonging. If you didn't have one, you weren't just poor, you were excluded from the tribe. But social pressure alone isn't enough to make a person sacrifice months of hard work for a stone. To make the illusion unbreakable, they had to push the needle deeper into our minds. That brings us to the second, much heavier reason, which relies on a concept called the anchoring effect. If you have never encountered this term in behavioral economics, the anchoring effect is our brain's tendency to disproportionately rely on the very first piece of information we receive when making a decision, even if that information is completely arbitrary. Our minds are terrible at calculating the absolute value of things in a vacuum. We need a reference point. If I show you a plain white t-shirt and tell you it costs $500, your brain immediately rejects it as absurd. But if I first show you a luxury runway show where that exact same shirt is marked at $5,000, and then I offer it to you for $500, suddenly your brain perceives it as an incredible bargain. The product hasn't changed, but your mental anchor has. De Beers executed the most brilliant economic heist in economic history. They didn't just want people to buy diamonds, they wanted to dictate exactly how much money people had to spend. Through a massive, decades-long advertising campaign, they planted a very specific rule in the public consciousness. A proper engagement ring must cost exactly 2 months of a man's salary. Think about the mathematical insanity of that statement. It completely ignores your rent, your student loans, your medical bills, and your future financial security. Yet, because that 2-month anchor was repeated so authoritatively across television screens and magazine pages, it became an unshakable psychological law. Men stopped asking themselves whether they should buy a diamond ring and instead began asking whether their current salary anchor was high enough to prove their worth. The question of love was successfully converted into a rigid financial metric. That is the economic trap, but it still doesn't touch the deepest, most sensitive nerve of the human condition. To discover why this brainwashing campaign has lasted for nearly a century, we must descend to the absolute bottom of the psychological funnel. This is the third and most powerful reason, driven by what is known as the endowment effect. In simple psychology terms, the endowment effect describes how we instantly value something significantly more the moment we establish a sense of personal ownership or emotional connection over it. We don't just see the object for what it objectively is, we project our own identity, our memories, and our self-worth directly into it. De Beers looked at the diamond market and realized that they had a massive logistical nightmare. If people bought diamond rings, got divorced, or fell into hard financial times, they would try to sell those second-hand diamonds back into the market. If millions of second-hand diamonds started circulating, the illusion of scarcity would shatter and the price would crash to zero. They needed to make sure that once a diamond entered a household, it never, ever left. So, in 1947, a copywriter penned 4 words that changed human history forever. A diamond is forever. By linking an indestructible, permanent physical stone to the fragile, abstract concept of lifelong love, they triggered a massive emotional endowment. They convinced the world that selling a diamond ring or even buying a used one was the spiritual equivalent of cheapening your marriage, or admitting that your love was temporary. The diamond became the physical manifestation of your soul's commitment. It became sentimental property. Because of this profound emotional anchoring, families would rather starve or go into deep debt during economic recessions than sell their diamond jewelry. De Beers succeeded in creating a product that consumers voluntarily agreed to lock away in safes forever, effectively removing it from the global supply chain and keeping the corporate machine running perfectly. When you step back and connect all these pieces together, the entire picture suddenly becomes blindingly clear. You see that this collective obsession is not a reflection of your own independent taste, nor is it proof of your genuine romantic desires. It is a highly sophisticated, multi-layered psychological trap. You were caught in a system where social proof made you crave the stone to feel accepted by your peers. The anchoring effect forced you to overpay for it to validate your social status, and the endowment effect tricked you into clinging to it forever, so the corporate cartel could keep prices artificially high. It was never about the mineral. It was about the brilliant manipulation of your deepest human instincts. So, how do we take this profound realization and actually use it to change our lives, our careers, and our financial destinies today? The solution is not to become cynical or to stop celebrating love or to isolate yourself from society. The solution is to learn how to apply this exact same 3-part psychological framework to build authentic value instead of being a victim of artificial value. Let us look at how this manifests in 3 distinct areas of your everyday existence. First, consider your personal life and how you view your own self-worth. Most of us spend our days trapped in a cycle of constant comparison, feeling inadequate because we don't possess the modern equivalents of the diamond ring, the luxury car, the pristine house, or the perfect social media lifestyle. We let society anchor our happiness to a specific material milestone. But once you understand the De Beers playbook, you realize that you can choose your own anchors. You can consciously decide that your value as a partner, a parent, or a friend is anchored to your presence, your emotional resilience, and your kindness, rather than an arbitrary financial metric dictated by a marketing department. The moment you define your own internal standards of success, the external anchors of consumer culture lose all their power over you. Second, look at your professional career or your daily work. If you're struggling to get noticed, to get promoted, or to be compensated fairly, it is usually because you're marketing yourself like a common piece of carbon. You are listing your technical skills, your resume bullet points, and your basic job descriptions, expecting people to automatically appreciate your worth. But human brains don't work that way. To scale your value by 10 times, you must apply the art of conceptual storytelling. Stop selling your raw labor and start selling the transformative outcome of your labor. Don't just tell your boss that you manage data. Tell them a story about how your data architecture protects the company from catastrophic operational failures. Frame your daily contributions around an irreplaceable concept of reliability and security. When you wrap your skills in a compelling narrative, you cease to be a vendor fighting for pennies, and you become a creator of genuine cultural value. I want to leave you with one final question to ponder tonight. Look closely at your current monthly expenses, your long-term goals, and the things you are sacrificing your mental health to achieve right now. Which of those goals are genuinely yours, and which of them are just diamonds that a sophisticated system has trained you to chase? I would love to hear your honest thoughts down in the comments below. Let us start a real conversation about breaking free from these hidden scripts. If this perspective brought you a moment of clarity amidst the noise, please consider subscribing to the channel and sharing this audio with someone who needs to hear it. Stay grounded, protect your mind, and I will speak to you in the next piece.